This video is sponsored by Knuckles0x, Crimson Manifesto, and Jopi. So this is it, the promised day, the one Bardock has been dreading. Try as he might, he has not been able to prevent it from arriving, his efforts having only succeeded in delaying it a little. Now, his space chickens have come home to roost. "It's fishing time, Papa! Wake up! Wake up!" Kakarot's yells ring through the small household, dragging everyone kicking and screaming back to consciousness, whether they want it or not. This is the only downside to Bardock's regained ability to sleep peacefully, that it must end, as when he sits up rubbing the crust of sleep from his eyes, he cannot help but think how nice it would be to have stayed in bed all day. Rising on the other side of the bed, Bardock sees his mate, Gine. It had been on her insistence that he even agreed to undertake this assignment, something about barely knowing his own sons and being away for so long. Truthfully, he doesn't see the problem, as he barely knew his own father, as they were fighting on separate worlds most of his childhood, though it's obvious this is important to Gine, so he'll suck it up and get it over with, if only to try and mend fences between them a little. Coming out into the kitchen, Bardock and Gine see Kakarot running around the wooden dining table, his excitement giving him extra stamina, as he continues to cheer, and so splitting up to perform their parental duties. Gine goes over to start breakfast, while Bardock takes a knee in front of his son, halting his advance, placing a hand on the kid's spiky head, so much like his own. Bardock warns him not to wear himself out so early, since it'd be stupid to get so worked up that he misses the thing he was excited for. But, feeling Gine's reproachful glare on his back for that slightly harsh summation, the former low class attempts to change tack, suggesting that Kakarot should go pick out his clothes or something, and with a nod, the boy heads off to his and Raditz' room, plenty of pep left in his step. Briefly, Bardock lets out a sigh of relief, as quiet as the last return to the house, though it is not long lasting, as from behind him, he hears the voice of his eldest, who sounds as peevish as ever. In an accusatory tone, he states that he heard him talking to Kakarot, before demanding to know if he's trying to weasel out taking them fishing again. He then continues in a more heated voice that Kakarot's really been looking forward to this, so if the old bastard tries to welch on them again, he's gonna kick his ass from here to the desert and back again, causing Gine to remind him to watch his language. Once, this sort of talk would have angered Bardock, and likely earned his son a punch, but after recent events, he's begun to see things more clearly, with him instead recognizing this as similar to the way he and his squad mates would look out for each other, with him even feeling something like respect for the way Raditz is showing these guts considering the sniveling disappointment he once was. All the same, Bardock is still a Saiyan, and so will not allow someone to speak to him that way, even his own son, brusquely informing the brat that actually, he was just telling him to get ready, since they ship out in T-30, with or without him. Giving a grunt as his only sign of understanding, Raditz then trots away to make his own preparations, while with a sigh, Bardock goes to take a seat at the table. However, here, Gine stops him, stating in no uncertain terms that he stinks, and needs to go take a dip in the water bowl before he can sit with them. Letting out a short exhale through his nose, Bardock complies, reflecting on how Raditz isn't the only one with an improved attitude, as he floats through the window and drops into the tub with a splash. Due to not having a fire lit under it, the water is still ice cold from the night air, though truthfully, Bardock doesn't care, having endured far worse in his time than a chilly bath. Following this comes breakfast, which is an even more boisterous affair than usual, with Kakarot chatting eagerly about how he's going to catch and eat the biggest fish, while more quietly, Gohan engages Raditz and Gine, with them chatting down the other end of the table. When they are done, the old man slips away before coming back with a trio of dusty old poles, which he hints to Bardock, calling them fishing rods, evidently an earthly contraption due to the poor bastards not having tails. Trying not to seem ungrateful, Bardock declines, saying they'll do it the same way, though with hands firmly on her hips. Gine tells her mate not so fast, stating that Kakarot's far too little for that still, since a big fish could pull him under, and he'd drown, so they will be using the rods. Grumbling under his breath that maybe there can be too much of a good thing, Bardock goes to suggest that maybe they should postpone until Kakarot's large enough to tail fish properly, but when he sees the matching disappointed looks in both Gine and Raditz's eyes, he relents, begrudgingly thanking Gohan for loaning him the equipment. Unfortunately, this is not Bardock's only disappointment of the morning, as when Gine presents him with a sack of sandwiches that will be his and the boys' lunches, he sees that instead of meat, they contain some sort of reddish goo that reminds him of the Nutri-Gel attack pods are dispensed dermally during long flights to ensure Saiyans didn't starve to death. Seeing this apprehension, Gine explains that it's an earthling delicacy called jelly, which Kakarot assures his father is actually really yummy, even offering to eat his sandwiches for him if he doesn't want them. Though the gruff sigh, Bardock replies that he'll take the kid's word for it, before setting off. Due to this being a food gathering exercise just as much as a bonding one, Bardock leads his sons further down the mountain to a large lake, which is said by Gine to contain many of the giant Palzu tuna. Being the most eager, Kakarot takes point in this expedition, while Raditz hangs back, with Bardock having a sneaking suspicion his eldest is doing that guard duty thing Gine told him about, and keeping an eye on him. Finally, the trio arrive at the lake, and wants to get this over with. Bardock tosses each of the boys a fishing pole, before plopping himself down and casting the line. As is their nature, Kakarot and Raditz immediately get competitive, declaring that they will each catch the biggest fish, while in the process, making it incredibly unlikely any of them will catch anything with their incessant yelling. Adopting his squad leader voice, but using it less abrasively, Bardock tells the pair to hush, explaining that the key to fishing is quiet. And while Raditz looks mutinous at this treatment, Kakarot simply smiles and makes a zipping motion with his lips, evidently seeing this as his dad trying to help him. The pair then go to find their respective fishing spots, with Raditz choosing one further away so that he doesn't have to risk losing his catch to his father or brother, while Kakarot sits himself right beside his father, even resting his head against the man's side. At first, Bardock tenses at this contact, his battle instincts telling him to put an end to it, though with a calming breath, he reminds himself that he isn't in a battle, he's on a peaceful world, having a day out with his sons. All the same, he does like one cigarette to take it off the edge, since he was at least able to smuggle these out, even if Gine confiscated his sake bottle. All in all, this isn't too bad, Bardock reflects, as he looks out into the still waters, disrupted only by the slight ripples of a surfacing fish, or one of them pulling in their line to cast it in a different spot. Even the lack of a catch doesn't really bother him, as he is enjoying the peace of it all, dozing off and catching more than one nap, with it being almost midday before anyone even gets a nibble. That person is Raditz, and using his superhuman strength, he is able to pull his catch out of the water, striking it once to kill it painlessly like Gine taught him, with it soon being revealed to be one of those giant tuna, who from the looks of things, is even bigger than Bardock himself. Lifting the massive fish over his head, the long-haired youth calls over to his father and brother to look at what he caught, and while Kakarot pouts that he's going to catch one that's twice as big, Bardock gives something like a smile, and tells his son that he did well. From the look of surprise on Raditz's face at these words of encouragement, one would think the fish had spoken to him, though all the same, he says nothing, simply tossing his catch into the shore and setting off to find a new spot, since it's unlikely any fish would go back to the exact place its friend had just been caught. Watching Raditz out of the corner of his eye, Bardock is honestly pleased to see that his eldest new spot is quite a bit closer to his, and while there is still quite a bit of distance between them, it is at least lessened somewhat. Not long after this, the Saiyans break for lunch, with Bardock reluctantly having to admit that this jelly stuff isn't half bad, even if it could do with something a bit saltier to offset, something he might pose to Gine, since she loves that kind of culinary stuff. Following this is more fishing, albeit now with a bit more talking, as Kakarot begins to ask his dad more about his journey, and whether it's his full stomach or the general serenity of this place. Bardock concedes to tell his story, with a decent bit more detail this time, speaking loud enough so that Raditz can hear as well, since he knows his firstborn well enough to be sure he's listening. Being a curious boy, Kakarot is a friend of questions, frequently interrupting, though in truth, Bardock doesn't mind so much, as it reminds him a lot of Gine when she was first drafted into his squad, and wanted to know how every little thing worked in the hope it would keep her alive. At the time, he had bluntly told her that the only teacher worth a damn was experience, and as he looks down at his son, he can't help but agree with that past assessment, telling his son in a much more tempered voice that the best way to understand is to go out and have his own journey someday when he's a bit older. Beaming, Kakarot declares that he will, before asking Raditz if he'd like to tag along, with the older boy retorting that since he's the big brother, it'll be his adventure, and Kakarot will be the tag along. This naturally results in a spat of bickering, though having gotten used to that by now, Bardock merely tunes them out and focuses on more napping, or fishing. After a while, the sun begins to hang low in the sky, and as Bardock looks around to his sons to suggest they head back, he is surprised to see Kakarot fast asleep, the excitement of the day having taken it out of him just like he warned. Smiling in spite of himself, Bardock hoists his youngest onto his back, doing his best not to wake him, while in a direct but not harsh voice, he tells Raditz to get his fish and gather up the fishing poles. Looking up, Raditz meets his dad's eyes, then without a word, he nods, setting about his task. When they are both ready, the two Saiyans take off, deciding to fly this time, and as Bardock takes one last look at the lake below him, he reflects that this was another good day after all. Alright, that's gonna do it for part 5.5 or 6.5. I really haven't decided just yet. I posted this idea around the time part 5 would have went live to everyone on YouTube, and the response of doing part 5 or part 0.5 content that would just kind of be side, slice of life stuff was very, very well received. So I went ahead and decided to do a few. Though the timeline is already a bit wonky since part 5 already goes back in time a little bit and then ends with the jump forward. So I mean, whether this ends up where it is, I'll figure that all out when I'm compiling everything into a full story sometime down the line. Also, fun fact, I'm recording this one before a side story that's actually going to be set a bit before this, which will have a totally different tone and be a lot more dour, so I hope that one doesn't end up messing up my mood. It's definitely going to come out for this one, but I just know it's also going to tap back into a bit of that angst that was seen a lot more in the first episode and then kind of made its head come back up in the fourth. All that said, usual shoutouts for visuals still go to Valerius Via and Mr. Negative. I also owe one to Pickle Dill. They pretty much wrote this entire script by themselves, but don't worry, the really angsty one is done by me. And of course, to our special supporters of this video, Emiliano Aruz, O Prosper, Lily, Pokemon Trainer Cam, and Coder SV3. Remember, you can join their ranks and the ranks of all these wonderful people whose names are scrolling up the screen right now. And doing so not only helps the channel more than the usual liking, subscribing, and commenting stuff does, but also gains you perks like early access to content, sneak peeks, and exclusive content that supporters will get way before YouTube viewers get to see it. All that said, be sure to take care of yourselves and the world around you, and as always, go beyond plus ultra. And I'll see you guys next time.